The prisoner in Sector 9 asterisk. The lights in Sector 9 were cold and flickering. The air smelled like metal and old blood. Deep inside the prison block, behind thick black walls, a human sat alone. His hands were chained. His face was bruised. Blood had dried on his lip. His name was Jackson Hale. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared at the floor like he was waiting. Alien guards walked past his cell without looking in. They were afraid of him. Everyone was. Commander Silas stepped through the heavy doors. Her armor was sharp and silver. Her eyes glowed yellow. She was tall, cold, and proud. She had captured many humans before. Most begged, most cried, most broke. But this Jackson, he didn't do any of that. He had smiled when they chained him. She walked to his cell and stopped. The door opened with a low hiss. JXO and didn't even look up. Human, she said. He blinked slowly, but stayed quiet. She stepped in. You've been silent for 3 days. Are you broken? No answer. She leaned closer, her voice softer now. You should be afraid. Finally, he moved. JXO and looked up at her with tired eyes. Then, a small smile. I am, he said. Commander Silas raised an eyebrow. Not of you, he whispered. Of what I'll do next. She frowned. What does that mean? Jackson looked straight into her eyes. You'll be running, he said. Before she could reply, the lights above them flickered again, then went out. Total darkness. A loud alarm began to scream. Red warning lights blinked along the walls. Guards shouted in the distance. Boots ran across metal floors. Commander Silas turned sharply and tapped her wrist control. What is happening? No answer. Just static. She looked back at Jackson. He was still sitting, still smiling, but something had changed in his eyes. 10 minutes earlier, in the main control room of the prison, a young alien tech officer watched the screen with growing fear. This can't be right, he said to himself. The power grid is falling one sector at a time. Behind him, the door opened slowly, but no one came in. Or so he thought. He turned around but saw nothing. Then he felt cold breath behind him, a whisper. Thank you for leaving the door open. He turned to scream to lead. Back in the cell, Commander Silas pulled her weapon. What did you do? Jackson stood up slowly. His chains clattered to the ground. She stared. How did you? He showed her his hands. The chains were melted at the ends. Metal remembers heat, he said calmly, and I remember pain. She stepped back. You're supposed to be just a man, she said. Just a soldier. Jackson took a step forward. I was, he said. But you changed that. Suddenly, a voice crackled over her wrist device. Commander, Section 3 is down. The power core has been accessed. By who? She yelled. We don't know. He's moving like a ghost. Then silence. Just static. She looked at Jackson again. He was gone. The cell was empty. In the dark corridors of Sector 9. Fear spread faster than fire. Guards searched the halls. Scanners failed. Doors opened on their own. Someone, or something, was unlocking the cells. Jackson Hale moved through the shadows like he knew the place, and he did. This was not his first time in this prison. It was where he had been built. 10 years ago. He knew every pipe, every wire, every weakness. And now he was using it all. But not for revenge. Not yet. For warning. He moved quietly toward the upper deck, passing cells full of broken prisoners. Some reached out. He broke their chains without a word. He left a message on the wall, drawn in heat-burned metal. I'm not escaping. I'm coming. On the bridge. Commander Silas watched the camera's only black screens. Give me visual, she shouted. We can't, her officer said. They're all offline. All of them. Yes, Commander. She turned slowly toward the prison floor below. Her hands trembled. For the first time in many years, she was afraid, and she didn't know why. In the control room, Jackson stood alone. Screens lit up around him. His fingers moved over controls. Like he was born there. On the screen in front of him, Commander Silas appeared. What do you want? She asked, voice shaking. JXO and leaning close. His voice was soft. To give you a head start. Then he smiled. Run. And the screen went dark. Asterisk. She doesn't know what he asked. Commander Silas stood frozen in the control room. The screen was black. The human's face was gone. But his voice echoed in her mind. Run. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a promise. She turned to her team. Track him now. We can't, one officer said. His heat signature vanished. He's a human, she snapped. Find him, but no one answered. No one moved. The team looked around nervously. One whispered, "What if he's not just human?" Silas stared at him. Then she turned and stormed out. In the hallway, lights flickered and sparked. Smoke drifted from broken wires. The air was warm. Too warm. As Silas walked, she passed guards standing with weapons. Most of them were shaking. One dropped his blaster when she passed. "Get control of yourselves," she barked, but even she didn't believe her own voice. Something was wrong, and it was deep. Meanwhile, Jackson moved through the old tunnels below the station. He was quiet, calm. His steps were slow, his eyes steady. He remembered these tunnels. They weren't on the maps. This was where they experimented on him, where they took his fear and replaced it with something else. Pain was part of his training. Darkness was his friend. Fire was his memory. They called it Project Echo, a secret program meant to create perfect human weapons. He was the last one, the only one that lived. And now, he was back. Not to destroy, but to warn them. He stopped by a metal door and touched a panel. It melted under his fingers. Commander Sala walked into the security room. One of her captains saluted. "We found something." "What is it?" He pointed to the screen. There was only static. Then, a few seconds of video. It showed Jackson standing in the center of a hallway. He looked at the camera. No expression. Then the camera burned. Not turned off. Not shot. Burned. "That's not possible," the tech whispered. "How did he?" "That's enough," Silas said. She turned away. She remembered something. When they captured him, the prison doctor had said, "His blood is hot." At the time, she thought it meant anger. Now she wasn't sure. In the lower levels, Jackson reached an old cell. It was sealed. Dusty. Inside was a figure. Weak, thin, but human. "Open your eyes," Jackson said softly. The prisoner flinched, then gasped. Double quotes Jackson. He nodded. "You remember me? You were the only one who didn't scream." "Yes." He broke the cell lock with his hands. "Can you walk?" "Barely." Jackson helped him up. "Then we move." The prisoner looked back once. "Why are you doing this?" Jackson paused. "Because they forgot we are still human." Back on the command deck, alarms flashed again. A new voice came through the system. "Prisoner release detected. Section 7 unlocked." "How?" Silas shouted. "There are no signs of him there," her officer said. "He's everywhere." "No," she whispered. "He's inside the system, in the hallway." Silas saw a message written in glowing heat on the wall. "You built this. Now watch it fall." She touched the wall. It was still warm. He had just been here, right behind them. In the lower engine room, Jackson stared at the old reactor. Alien tech, yes, but built on human fear. They had used it to power the cells, the cuffs, the torture machines. He placed his hand on the cord. It began to shake. Lights flickered. The floor rumbled. He spoke softly. "Remember me?" Commander Sala watched her team fall apart. One guard refused to move. Another shot at shadows. "Stop this," she shouted. But the fear was stronger than her voice. Even her second-in-command whispered, "He's not like the others." "Then, what is he?" she snapped. No one answered, because none of them knew. Jackson moved like smoke. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He didn't need to. This was his prison once. Now it was his weapon. As he passed through the control wires and broken walls, he whispered one word, "Remember." And the systems obeyed. In the last moment of the part, Silas stood in her private chamber, alone. The lights dimmed. Her screen blinked. A new message appeared. "You still think this is about escape?" Another blink. "I didn't come to run." Then silence. The escape path was a lead. Alien guards rushed toward the east hangar. The escape doors were open. The cameras showed movement. They thought he was trying to flee. "He's heading for Bay 4. Someone yelled. Commander Sila followed, her boots pounding across the metal floor. Her heart raced. Her orders were clear. Don't let him leave. Kill if needed. But deep inside, a part of her wished he would escape. So he would stop haunting them. So she would stop seeing his eyes in every screen. But when they reached Bay 4, the truth hit like a storm. There was no one there. Only a message. "I didn't escape. I'm still here." Burned into the wall. The guards froze. Commander Silas stared. Her hands were shaking now. "How did he do this?" one soldier asked. No one answered. Deep below, in the shadows of the old power tunnels, Jackson Hale was not running. He was hunting every camera he passed melted every sensor shut down. His body moved with strange rhythm, half man, half something else. The prisoner he had saved earlier followed behind, weak but awake. Where are we going? The man asked. To remind them what they created. Jackson said. They reached a sealed door. Jackson placed his hand on the panel. The metal hissed and turned red. It opened. Inside were rows of capsules. Cold, silent. Inside each one humans. Alive. Asleep. They said we were all dead. The prisoner whispered. They lied. Jackson said. He began breaking the locks. One by one. Meanwhile, Silas stood in the central control tower. The air felt heavier. No one was speaking now. Screens kept blinking on and off. Something strange was happening to the station's AI. Her tech officer said it was broken, but she didn't believe that. He's talking to it. One whispered. That's impossible. Another said. It's alien tech. He shouldn't even understand it. Suddenly, all lights went off. At one screen turned on. JAXO in single quotes S face appeared. Not angry. Just calm. You still don't understand. He said. This isn't about running. In the darkness, Jackson spoke to the system. Not with words. With memory. They had wired him into machines when he was young. They tried to break his mind. But instead, he had learned to listen. Machines have voices. He realized they just spoke in silence. And now, the station was listening to him. One by one, the old prisoners opened their eyes. Some had been asleep for years. Some cried. Some screamed. But Jackson walked among them and said softly, you are free. But not because they let you go. They followed him like shadows. Quiet. But burning with something new. Commander Sila received a new alert. Sector 12. Breach. Human life signs. Increasing. Guards. Down. She dropped into her chair. He's not alone anymore, she whispered. In the hangar, Jackson stood with 20 survivors behind him. Men, women, even one child. He stared at the dark sky above the blast doors. Then turned to the group. Do not fight unless you must, he said, but do not bow either. One woman, scarred and silent, stepped forward. What are we to them? Jackson looked at her. Double quotes proof. She nodded. In the command center, Sala played old files. Experiments. Screams. Children being tested. Humans begging. She shut her eyes. We were wrong, she whispered. But it was delayed. On every hallway wall now, a message glowed. I'm not here to escape. I'm here to be remembered. And suddenly, aliens across the station began to panic. They weren't fighting a prisoner. They were facing a storm they made themselves. Commander Sila received a private message on her wrist screen. It was from Jackson. You lied to the galaxy. You said we were gone. But I remember everything. And now, so will they? At the very end of part 3, one young alien soldier runs through a hallway. He turns a corner and freezes. JAXON stands there. Not with a weapon. Just watching. The soldier lifts his blaster with shaking hands. Jackson speaks softly. You don't have to fight. But the soldier fires. JAXO and disappears into shadow. When the lights come back, the soldier is lying on the floor. Alive. But his blaster is melted. Next to him, written in burned metal. You're lucky. I remember mercy. Asterisk. The darkness listens to him. Station was falling silent. Not because it was empty. But because no one dared to speak anymore. Every alien officer knew something was moving through the halls. Not loud, not fast, but steady, quiet, closer every second. The lights in corridor Delta flickered, then turned black. One guard lifted his weapon. Who's there? He whispered. But all he heard was footsteps. Not running. Walking. Then nothing. His weapon was pulled from his hands. A warm breath touched his ear. Go home. He screamed and ran. Behind him, Jackson stepped into the darkness again. Commander Silas sat in the war room with the last few senior officers. Their faces were pale. Screens showed nothing but static. How many prisoners has he freed? She asked. 35, one said. Maybe more. How is he controlling the power grid? We don't know. And I silenced. Finally, someone said, we think the darkness listens to him. She stared at him. That's nonsense, is it? The officer asked quietly. The lights fail. When he comes, the cameras melt. The air feels heavy. Another said, he's not using tools, not weapons, just presence. Suddenly, the main door slid open. They all turned fast, guns raised. But no one entered, only smoke, and a soft voice on the intercom. This station doesn't belong to you anymore. Deep underground, Jackson walked with 6 former prisoners. They had found old storage rooms full of stolen human tech, scraps, armor. He handed them pieces. You don't need to fight, he said, but if you do, aim only at the cruel. Young man asked, why are you helping us? Jackson looked ahead, because I was made to destroy, but I choose to free. In the medical wing, one alien doctor hid behind a supply cart. He watched as Jackson entered slowly. He held no weapon. He looked around, then spoke. You were the only one who didn't scream while we suffered. The doctor stood up. Jackson nodded. Leave, now, and take your kindness with you. The doctor walked past him, eyes wide with fear and something else. Respect. On the top deck, a power technician tried to restart the grid. Suddenly, his hands froze. The screen in front of him glitched. Then showed Jackson's face. Stop trying to fix what was never yours. The technician ran behind him. Machines began turning on their own. The station's heart now beat with Jackson's rhythm. Commander Sila opened a sealed chamber. It was the Project Echo archive. Inside were files, reports, video logs. She watched old footage, a boy screaming in a chair, scientists injecting glowing liquid brainwaves, burning on a screen. Then the final clip. A teenage Jackson silent, calm. His voice barely above a whisper. You'll regret this. She closed the screen. And for the first time, she looked afraid. Every hallway now carried whispers, voices from old speakers, some real, some only in their heads. Guards dropped weapons. Officers locked themselves in rooms. No one wanted to face what walked in the dark. Jackson stood in the center of the command relay room. His eyes closed. His hands touched the main core. Memories flooded in. His mother's face, the cold lab, the pain, the silence, hope in his eyes. You were supposed to break me, he said, but you forgot one thing. He pulled the lever, and the whole station dropped into backup mode. Every door opened. Every light turned red. The alarm stopped. Just silence now. His kind of silence. Commander Silas stood on the edge of the bridge. She stared down into the lower levels. Then she heard the voice again, this time, not from a screen, but behind her. You said I should be afraid. She turned fast. Jackson stood in the shadows. I am, he said. He stepped forward. Not of you. Another step of what I'll do next. She raised her blaster. Her hand shook. Jackson didn't move. You'll be running. He turned and walked away. She dropped her weapon and sank to the floor. He was built for war, but made for more. In the dark center of the station, Jackson sat alone. His hands rested on the old floor. Above him, sparks fell from broken lights. Below him, the memory of pain returned. This room was where they did it, where they turned him from a boy into a weapon. He could still smell the burned wires, still hear the machines that whispered in his dreams. But now, he was awake. And the machines were listening. Commander Silas stood in the broken archive room. In her hands, she held a small paper file. Real paper. Rare. On the cover, Jackson Hale, Echo 12. She opened it. Inside were handwritten notes. Not from scientists. From him. Page 1. I miss the sky. They said I might forget it soon. I won't. Page 3. Today they made me watch a man cry until he couldn't anymore. I still heard him after they turned off the sound. Page 5. They said I'm lucky that I lived, but this doesn't feel like living. Last page. You built a monster. Now you'll meet him. Suddenly, the station lights dimmed again. Sila held the file tighter. What did we do to you? She whispered. Jackson stood in the mirror room now. He looked at his reflection. His eyes had changed. They glowed softly, just like the machines they once used to hurt him. Behind him, the rescued prisoners gathered. Some wore makeshift armor. Some held tools, sticks, even broken weapons. They didn't look like fighters, but they looked like they had nothing left to lose. What now? One asked. Jackson spoke without turning. We make sure this never happens again. In the command center, panic was growing. The last few guards tried to seal escape pods, but every pod door refused to close. He's controlling the doors. Someone shouted, shut down the AI. We can't. It's not responding. Commander Sila entered, calm but pale. She looked at them. He's not controlling the eye, she said. He is the eye now. Back in the old lab, Jackson found the final room. The one he feared most. Inside, a small bed, a desk, a child's drawings on the wall. His one showed the earth, drawn in blue crayon. One showed a man standing in fire with the words, This is me. Another. Showed a woman's face. The word mom written below it. Jaxon stared at that one the longest. He reached out and touched it. The wall warmed under his hand. He closed his eyes. And for the first time in years, his voice broke. I'm still here, Mom. Suddenly, a voice came through the old intercom. Commander Syla. She spoke quietly. Jackson, can you hear me? He didn't answer, but he listened. You weren't a monster. You were a boy we tried to change, but you didn't become what we wanted. She paused. You became something stronger. Jackson stood silent, his hands still on the drawing. Meanwhile, across the station, prisoners and aliens alike paused. The walls no longer flashed warnings. Instead, soft music played, an older song. Slow, calm. Something about stars. Something about home. No one understood the words, but the feeling was clear. This was no longer a prison. This was a memory. In the hangar, the main blast door began to open. Outside, the stars blinked. Freedom waited. Some aliens dropped their weapons and walked away. Some prisoners followed, but many stayed. They weren't ready to leave. Not yet. They waited for Jackson. Commander Syla sent a final message. Jackson, listen. The council is coming. They think you're trying to take the station. They'll destroy it. A pause. But you have a choice. Jackson stood in the power core. His hand hovered above the final control lever. With one pull, he could destroy the entire base. Or he could do something no one expected. Something human. He closed his eyes. Took a breath and whispered, not today. Instead of pulling the lever, he touched the main panel. The station lights turned gold. Doors opened gently. Screens showed blue skies or skies. The prisoners cried. Even some guards dropped to their knees. And far above, the Galactic Council ships watching paused their attack because something had changed. Something they couldn't explain. In the final moments of Part 5, Commander Syla stands on the upper deck, watching Jackson from a distance. He walks slowly. No weapon, no armor, just himself. Around him, the prisoners follow. Someone whispers, he was built for war. Someone else finishes, but he chose peace. They tried to kill him. It only made him stronger. Far above the prison station, Council warships began to charge their weapons. They didn't wait for orders. They didn't ask questions. They just saw one human controlling an entire alien prison, and that made him dangerous. Inside the command tower, Commander Syla watched the sky turn red. A warning flashed across the main screen. Council strike incoming. 120 seconds. Officers ran in panic. One shouted, we must leave now. Another cried, open the pods. But Syla didn't move. She was watching one screen. The one showing Jackson standing in the center of the station, his eyes closed, his hand on the main console. He looked peaceful. To peaceful. In the reactor chamber, Jackson opened his eyes. He felt it. The power rising above. The heat building in space. They were going to destroy everything. Him. The prisoners. The truth. But he was not afraid. He stepped forward and placed both hands on the core. A loud hum shook the floor. Machines began to glow. Lights turned white hot. And then, his body lit up like fire. In the escape bay, the rescued prisoners stared at the ceiling. They felt the vibration under their feet. Someone asked, what's he doing? A woman whispered, something impossible. Council warships fired. A line. A burning plasma fell through space fast. Violent. Final. It aimed directly at the station. But then, something happened. A shield appeared. Not from outside. From within. It wrapped around the station like a living wall. White, gold, and glowing. The plasma hit it and stopped. Burned. Then vanished. In the council command ship, an alien general stood up in shock. What was that? He yelled. A tech officer said, we don't know. The station has created some kind of energy barrier. From what source? The human. Inside the core room, Jackson stood alone. His body shook, skin glowing, eyes bright. He was burning but alive. The station hummed with his pulse. He wasn't just part of the system. He was the system now. Commander Syla received a new screen message. Attack blocked. Source, Jackson Hale. She stared in silence. She knew then. The human boy they once broke was stronger than all of them, and he wasn't fighting for revenge. He was fighting to stop more pain. Down in the hangar, the prisoners began to gather. They looked up. The sky above the glass ceiling turned clear, the stars visible again. The children smiled. For the first time, they felt safe. Jaxon fell to one knee. His body was hot. Steam rose from his arms, his breath heavy. He had stopped the attack, but it cost him. His voice was soft now. Just a little more. Commander Sila ran through the halls, not to escape, but to reach him. She passed stunned guards and broken doors. She entered the power room and froze. Jackson knelt in the middle of the floor. Light poured from his skin. He looked up slowly. You came. She nodded. Her voice shook. You're burning. I know. Why don't you stop? He looked at her. Because they'll fire again. You'll die. Jackson gave a small smile. Maybe. But they won't forget this. Outside, the council ships charged a second blast. But this time, they paused. One commander said, the shield may hold again. Another said, we underestimated him. And someone else whispered, maybe we were wrong about humans. Inside, Silas stepped closer to Jackson. He handed her a data chip. What is this? She asked. Everything. Files, memories, truth. Send it to every system, every planet. Let them see. She took it. You still believe in truth? She asked. Jaxon nodded. I was built to kill, but I still remember what's right. Suddenly, Jackson's voice echoed through the entire station. No screen. No speaker. Just his voice. Everywhere. To the council above. I am not your enemy, but I am your mirror. What you see in me is what you created, but I still choose mercy. And then, the lights went out. Commander Sila rushed forward. Jackson had fallen, his body still glowing, but dimmer now. She held him in her arms. Jackson, he opened his eyes, barely. Tell them what? She asked. I could have burned them all. A pause. But I didn't. The galaxy just learned his Namus station floated silently in space. The glow round had slowly faded. Council warships hovered nearby, but none dared to fire again. Inside the command ship, a top official stepped back from the screen. Who is he? The general asked quietly. No one answered, until a young officer said softly, his name is Jackson Hale. Inside the power room, Commander Silas sat beside Jackson's body. His breathing was slow. His skin no longer glowed. But he was alive. Barely. She held the data chip he had given her, and then she did something no one expected. She plugged it into the council signal feed and hit send all. Across the galaxy, systems buzzed. Screens lit up. People of every species, every world, watched. They saw the experiments. The torture. The children, the pain. And then they saw him. A boy locked in silence. A man walking through fire. A prisoner who became something more. They saw Jackson Hale. And the galaxy went quiet. On a mining planet, a child with human blood cried, but not from fear. From hope. On a trade ship, a soldier paused his weapon checks and whispered, he made it. On a council world, a senator watched the screen and deleted his war plans. On the prison station, the rescued humans stood together. Some cried, some hugged. One boy asked, is he dead? Commander Silas stepped out. She shook her head. Not dead, just tired. Jackson lay in the medbay now. The machines around him were silent. He hated noise, but someone had placed a small speaker nearby. Soft music played an old Earth song. His fingers moved slightly, his lips curved just a little. A smile. Days later, a council ship landed, but no soldiers stepped out. Only one elder. Grayskin, slow moving. He bowed. We have watched, and we have learned. He looked around at the freed prisoners, then at Sila, then at the empty hallway where Jackson once walked. Tell him, the elder said. He changed everything. Sila walked into the quiet room. Jaxon sat up slowly now. He looked older. Not by age. But by soul. She sat beside him. They came, she said. He nodded. I know. They want peace. He looked at her. Do they deserve it? Sila thought for a long moment. No. But maybe they can earn it. Jackson didn't smile, but his eyes softened. The station was no longer a prison. It became something else. A place of memory. Healing. The broken were not forgotten. They were honored. One day, a child drew a picture on the wall. A tall man, standing in fire, reaching for the stars. Below it, she wrote, Jackson Hale, the human who didn't run. Word spread fast. Songs were written. Monuments built. But Jackson never returned to Earth. He chose to stay where the silence still lived, where he could hear the machines, and they could hear him. One night, as he stood looking at the stars, Sila joined him. She asked, do you still fear what they'll do next? He replied, no. She looked at him. Then what do you fear? He turned, calm and quiet. What I'll do next, he said softly, because if they ever try again, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. She already knew. They would be running.